President Trump has come through with some huge trade tariff threats. He was going to hugely up tariffs against 8 separate European nations, moving to 10% in February and up to 25% in June if they did not back off the US's attempts to acquire Greenland. Fears are out there in the market that this could escalate into a full-time trade war. Hello and welcome to ATFX US trade tariff update. Certainly what's been moving markets for the first day of this weekend and what was anticipated to come over the weekend were announcements out of the US from President Trump that he was going to hugely up tariffs against 8 separate European nations, moving to 10% in February and up to 25% in June if they did not back off and kind of back the US's attempts to acquire Greenland. Now, talks had been from some of these European nations, they were going to do some small military exercises in Greenland, kind of like a pushback on what President Trump had said with regard to Greenland. Obviously, it's a protector of Denmark. So lots going on in the news. And markets, of course, have had to react. So what we're going to do, we'll look at today, we're going to look at some of the key components that have moved on the back of that and what could potentially move and move even harder in the coming days and weeks. So we're going to have a look at the euro, we're going to have a look at cable, and we're going to have a look at those haven trades that are outstanding at the moment, gold and silver. First of all, we have to have a look at what's really going on behind the scenes. It has been a barnstorming start to 2026 when you look at certainly President Trump's involvement in what's been going on in financial markets. First of all, of course, we had activity, I can call it activity in Venezuela. We saw big US attacks there, movement in oil, obviously, on the back of that, and talk of US companies, of course, moving into Venezuela when there've been sanctions before. Then focus is turned over to Greenland, pushback from some of the sovereign nations in the EU, and further pushback from the US. And now we're all looking very closely at Newswires to see where things were going to go. So expectation of some big moves on the Monday morning probably didn't come out as hard as we expected. Most people were expecting euro to take a bit of a hit, sterling to take a bit of a hit as the threats from the US came through. They did start off on the downside, but they bounced quite nicely and seems to be a bit of a sell US theme coming through as well, where we did get some strong and solid moves as in both gold and silver accelerating to the top side. We saw 1.6% out of gold, that plus some for silver, and we'll look at those charts in a minute and see where we've got some of these potential moves and what could be going ahead. But on the safe haven side of things, if we do see an escalation and this looks to turn into a full-scale trade war between the US and the EU, expect haven trades to take off, and that is gold to the top side and probably silver to the top side, which has had a dramatic run of over 90% in the last few months. Obviously, we're going to see some moves in the currencies as well. At the moment, it's a tough call at the moment. Is it going to be more negative for the euro and EU? Is it going to be more negative for the US in the long term? That's where the newswires are going to play out for us. And that's what traders are looking very, very keenly at, especially today. We had the US markets on holiday on Monday. We're now Tuesday in the Australian session. Later on today, we get US markets come back. It's going to be very interesting to see. Most people are thinking they're going to be well on the back foot when they open. So without any further ado, let's have a look at a few of the different charts that we're going to have a look at. We'll start off with euro and cable. Then we'll go over and have a quick look at gold and silver. So here we are on the daily euro chart. It's a little bit of a longer one out there, but we know what's been going on. This has been that recent appreciation in the US dollar, really, off these highs up around 118 for the euro. This is what we saw yesterday. So initial dip on the open, it wasn't massive in the way of gapping, but low down at 115.73. Then it spent most of the rest of the day with the dollar taking a bit of a hit and euro regaining up to those levels plus some where it had closed on Friday. So high there at 116.50. We're just edging a bit lower now. I would anticipate now for those euro bears out there, if they think Europe's going to get hit hard, they're going to be looking to sell breaks down here, maybe fade any rallies up there. For those dollar bears, we're looking to see an extended move back up. Resistance now coming in, look around those levels, 117.80. And then, of course, these previous highs just above 118, the figure. So plenty of volatility anticipated in euro and in cable coming forward. I'll just zoom in so we can just have a little bit of a better look at how that factors in on a tight one. There you go. There's those moves. So there you go. Low 115.73. Probably the next target short term, that high around 117, the figure, one pip shy of it. And then we move up to there, right? So here's that cable chart as well on the dailies. Once again, a little bit of a longer term view. These highs that we saw way back in July 2025, decent resistance trend line now coming about these levels. As you can see, we're pretty much middle of the range for cable, so it's got plenty of opportunity to move either side. Yesterday's low here coming in around, let's have a quick look for you, 113.31. We're back up to nearly 80 points higher, up around this 134, right in the middle of range. So opportunity for it to move back up to this one for those dollar bears out there. We're looking at what, 135-ish, 135.44, previous high here, 135.68. Downside support, initial low here. They're going to have a look at that 113.31 level. If cable looks to get hit, if the US looks to go hard at the UK on this, and then support down here around 132.33. So plenty of opportunity, I think, for cable to move in the next few days. We already saw a decent move, as you can see there. Big moves yesterday in cable, not unsurprisingly, I suppose. Potential for big moves, and it will come down to what we're hearing on the news wires. For cable trading and sterling traders, well, don't forget it's a big data week. We've got employment numbers coming out tonight. We've got CPI data later in the week as well, and we hear from Bank of England Governor Andrew Bailey. So a lot of moving parts for sterling traders out this week. Could be a very, very whippy day. Plenty of opportunities. And here's that very familiar gold chart that many of you, if you've been tuning into ATFX and our updates over the last year or so, very familiar move. It is a huge uptrend, isn't it? And then this is the latest move that we saw from sort of back in mid 2025. Horrendously strong move up to the top side, and this is what we saw yesterday. So a bit of gapping on the open. There was a bit of gapping. It came open up around here, 46.30. There's that brand new all-time high, 46.90.59. We're just trading slightly off that, but it really is. Investors are concerned with what's going to happen, concerned with what's going on in the US, of course, taking into account what we're getting on this tariff front. If tariffs do accelerate, and we do see this trade war coming through between the EU and the US, and there could be ripple effects from this as well, as each side looks to go to their partners. It's probably not going to be good for risk in general. Gold opening, further topside potential. A lot of people now calling for 4,800 and then that match at 5,000. If this really does escalate, that could be in play as well. There we now have a quick look at silver, which has really been the mover of the last few months. And here's that silver chart. As I said, dramatic moves, as you can see. Down here, just under $50 an ounce. We're approaching 100. Here's the high that we saw yesterday. I think we might have even seen a new high today. High 94.72, high 94.68. So new high already clicked in the Asian session today. Massive moves here. If you look at this low back on, what are we talking? Just in January, early in January, we're down at $75. We've already hit nearly 95. So huge moves in silver. Liquidity is obviously playing a factor, and it can play a factor. We're seeing multiple percentage moves in silver. So if you're on the right side of it, it's going really well. It can be very painful if you're on the wrong side. But once again, for silver, similar state to gold. If this looks like escalating, if this trade tariff issue looks like escalating further between President Trump's US administration and the European sector, and indeed, if it even spreads further, as I said, that ripple effect could come into play. Expect silver to move topside even harder, and like you have to say, $100 may not be very far off. Initial support will come in around these lows, looking about 86, but it is very whippy. That trend line is a good trend line in there. Trend line support now around about just above $80. So plenty of moves. Obviously, topside, it's kind of clean air if it keeps breaking, but really interesting setup this week. Going to be very interesting when we start to hear from a lot of people On top of everything I've just mentioned, World Economic Forum is in Davos. President Trump is set to speak. Many central bankers are set to speak. It could get really tasty and we could see some massive moves in the market. As always, good luck with your trading out there. If you need anything from us at ATFX, please do let us know. And thanks for tuning in.